Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. Been a minute. Took a few days off for the holidays, just like everybody else. Hope you had a merry one. Hope everybody's doing well. And let's get caught up. We got a lot to catch up on, I suppose. And that includes, obviously, now just being a few days away from Florida State taking on Georgia in the Orange Bowl. Don't blame me if you're not feeling that snap, that spark, that thing that you normally have before a big game like this. Kind of lacking a little bit, but not lacking in stuff to talk about and the tentacles that go from there. I'm Jeff, obviously. Tom is with me. We're back. Tom is in New York, and he is sitting comfortably doing the Jeff Cameron Show, where he'll be doing the Jeff Cameron Show for the foreseeable future. But that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's cat's out of the bag. You talked about the move. This is where we are. We're just outside of Brooklyn, New York, and I'm not going to go into the finer details of exactly where we are. A little privacy, please, people. But it's an interesting Christmas this year because it was cold. It was actually kind of cold and damp and windy, and people up here embrace it in the north because it gives them a reason to go outside. I hear it's miserable the next couple of months, so we'll figure it out. But good times.
Yeah, it was not cold in Tallahassee. It was warm, and unseasonably warm, very frustratingly warm. If you're me, it's all right. We're supposed to get cold now. Now, enough about the weather. Florida State's not playing a single player that you've ever heard of in this game. That's not true. It's close to not true.
Defensively, it looks fairly similar. Offensively, it looks like the other team in the spring game. When you have the good players stack on one side and you're like, all right, who's the gold team this year? It's like, okay, you got the gold team.
Well, I want to start with something here. I want to start big picture. This is a catch-up day, and it's a Redemption Thursday, and there will be some wagers, and we'll get to all that. But and by the way, I've had a really good bowl season in a year where it's impossible to guess bowls. But you know why? I've been in-game betting. That's the ticket, friends. Just in-game bet, all to your heart's desired. Easy to cash on these overs and unders right now. These games take on a feel very early, very early. Who's there to play? Who's not? Who's playing their players? Who's not? Who's interested, who's not. I mean, it's all pretty obvious right now with these bowl games. That's the way to do it. That's my Redemption Thursday advice to you is just go easy because early on, there's no telling. There's no telling who cares about playing in these games. I would also advise if you get first-year coaches, second-year coaches, and it's their first time in a bowl, lean in that direction. See the West Virginia game. You kind of got to sense some of these teams, and I, for example, at the very beginning of bowl season, felt very good about some of the teams that had not made a bowl that were excited to make a bowl. And then, felt like Virginia Tech yesterday felt like a team that cared deeply about winning that game.
Well, and again, Tulane was up for a New Year's Six bowl. They're not going to one. And you see that Vegas had reflected that. I think the line was over a score before kickoff.
Yeah. So, you could see what was going on there.
On its face, you're talking about a top 20 team against the team in Virginia Tech that was not, the ACC is not exactly the last bastion of great Power 5 football. Some might say they're not even a Power 5 conference if their name is Bill Hancock. But at any rate, Tulane is not thrilled to be there. And Virginia Tech, that whole season, I mean, they're writing stories about it at the Mid-Atlantic right now about them finding themselves about the halfway mark, just about the time we played them, because their offense took off after that, and they cared deeply, like Harbaugh does in the preseason yesterday.
Yeah, and I had an easy win with Georgia Tech knocking out UCF in that game in the Union Home Mortgage Bowl or whatever it was called, Tom. And I was like, Georgia Tech's going to desperately want to be there. They're going to care a ton. It was easy to guess, for example, that South Florida, with a first-year coach trying to get that program turned around. I don't know that I thought they'd beat Syracuse 45-0, but I thought they'd win comfortably. And, Syracuse had no reason to be there. They fired their coach. They're starting over. You have two programs going in opposite directions. These are the ones to cash in on. Sorry, that's a tangent side Redemption Thursday wager sort of discussion. Back to Florida State, who, by the way, if you're betting, take Georgia. Here's the thing. What I don't like is what I knew I was going to hear, but this will serve as a friendly reminder to all of you that the vast majority of people who are writing articles this holiday season about Florida State's opportunity to prove they belong, or Florida State's selfishness in filing a lawsuit against the ACC, or whatever it is that fits neatly, it's compartmentalized, it's an easy story to write. Just remember that that's disingenuous. It's not real. It is comically stupid. And that is what you're hearing right now across the board when it comes to commentary involving Florida State. With all the opt-outs, you'll hear a lot of people say, well, I guess that program's not what we thought it was. What are you talking about? It makes zero sense to try to equate Florida State having players opt out, turn pro, transfer portal, whatever it might be, and whether or not they care to play football, whether or not they care about the season they just had, whether or not they were good, none of that is in any way commiserate. It makes zero sense. And yet you'll hear people like morons named Pat Forty and others write these kinds of pieces where you just roll your eyes. But I warned you of this. I warned you the second the season ended. I warned everybody. Get ready for this narrative about how bad Florida State really was, how they don't deserve to be there because of the result of the Orange Bowl. Now, am I assuming something here? Am I assuming Florida State's going to get housed in the Orange Bowl? I am. Hope I'm wrong. Bowl games are fickle. Georgia's got a ton of people opting out too. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, Florida State plays well. And even then, I would warn you, do not accept the narrative. Do not be the guy that then goes, see? No. We already made the point, see. Florida State deserved to be in the college football playoff, period. Regardless if they get beat by 30 or win by 30, it doesn't change that fact. Don't do that. Don't become them.
Well, yeah, time is a flat circle here. It reminds me of Mark May with Bobby Bowden. It's like, how dare Florida State do what they're doing to Bobby Bowden? How dare Florida State? That man built that program. And then, at different points of the season, Mark May would be one of the people that says, oh, what's happened to Florida State? It's just amazing how that program, it doesn't live up to what it used to live up to. It's like, well, which is it, pal? And that's the energy that we have here from Pat Forty and others who, it's which is it? You want to pick on Florida State? Did we cross the line, or are we just following what everybody else is doing in this era of college football and living for ourselves and fighting for ourselves? I'm not a guy who believes philosophically that isolationism is good for the world, but this isn't about the world. This is about Florida State's health as a program and your mental health as a fan right now, which is a little bit shaky if you're a Florida State lover. Isolate. Right now, we're on our own. This is an island. Even ACC programs that are just as interested as leaving the conference as we are not walking side by side with us because they want to see how we, after testing the waters, fare in the court of law against the ACC. In short, Clemson is cowardly. In short, North Carolina is cowardly. They go on, especially Bubba Cunningham, not Bubba Cunningham, excuse me. North Carolina's athletic director. No, it is Bubba Cunningham.
Yeah.
Says publicly that Florida State should not be shaking the tree looking to get out of the ACC. Meanwhile, and I know behind the scenes, North Carolina can't wait to get into either the Big Ten or the SEC. But they're too cowardly to be front-facing like Florida State is. So none of the national conversation matters. Live for us, live for Florida State, and we'll see in about a year where we are.
The next time that you'll be able to have perhaps a sensible conversation regarding what Florida State is or is not, where they're headed, where they're not, will be before the start of this next season. It'll probably be sometime in June, July, where tensions and emotions are no longer ruling the day. You have a situation, and then this occurs to me all the time. What's at stake in this lawsuit isn't just whether or not Florida State can get out of here in a timely fashion. It's the survival of the ACC. So you've got a lot of people on pins and needles. You can understand that this action by Florida State in many ways is going to determine whether or not the ACC exists. So if you look at it that way, it's not surprising to hear the kind of vitriol and backlash and frustration pointed at Florida State. Right now, the Noles seem to be the program that, for whatever reason, timing has a lot to do with it, I think, represents all of the bad things that are happening in college athletics. So Florida State is having to shoulder the burden of fan frustration, media pundits frustration, those that love the sport that are lashing out at sort of the wild, wild west part of this that we've described before with the amount of transfers,
Yep.
the diluted nature of the bowl games, which don't take on any real meaning anymore, and people are frustrated by that. These the kids that are getting paid NIL money and what in the eyes of some is way too much and unregulated, and all the recruiting aspects, so signing day aspects that are frustrating and hard to follow for people. These kinds of things are falling at the feet of Florida State because of the timing of the lawsuit. But of course, all these things existed.
Yeah.
Alabama pays like 45 analysts to run the numbers on their opponent 4 weeks from now's third down calls. But Florida State's the problem.
Oh, well.
I mean, this is stuff that we all know, right? I mean, like when Maryland and Rutgers are trouncing Florida State in annual revenue based on athletics, you understand that Florida State was in an untenable position. Everybody understands in actuality how we arrived at this place. It's just convenient right now. It's a ready-made story to blame Florida State for all of it.
Well, and again, Florida State is a name that makes headlines. So it's easy when somebody sees on the crawl of ESPN or Yahoo or wherever Pat works these days, the name Florida State, people are going to click on it more often than they would for, say, Miami, or they would for, say, Clemson.
Almost anybody in the country, Tom. You could keep naming them, yeah.
It's more clickable. But Florida State is simply because everybody else in the conference that wants to get out is cowardly and they're not willing to do it themselves. Florida State is looking to get out in a one program deal. We're not trying to come out as a package deal with somebody from the state or somebody from the region. We're operating in our own best interest. Oregon and Washington mutilated the Pac-12 after USC and UCLA had left. They mutilated that conference on the way out. I mean, it's not fit for television what they did to the Pac-12 on the way out. And nobody cared because nobody clicks on an article about Oregon. That's the thing here. Remember that. And again, in about a year's time, maybe this all shakes out and we can start enjoying and entertaining the opinions of national and regional talking heads. But for now, isolationism as a Florida State fan is the best course of action to keep your health mentally, because they're all coming for us now. And it sucks. I don't like to be us against the world guy, but this is literally where Florida State is right now.
When you make a decision that is of the magnitude that Florida State made to go it alone, to file a lawsuit, to challenge the grant of rights, I think you have to understand that there's a certain renegade element that comes with that, a label that comes with that. And that's fine. I rather enjoy it. I recall that Florida State's greatest successes in the moments when you really realized that you'd reached the top of the mountain yet again. And I mean in the college football world, period, as in the preeminent program and nobody else, was always when Florida State was loathed. It was always when Florida State was the center of ire for people. It was a renegade program that Bobby Bowden didn't have control of. Look at this thing at Dillard's, which we all look back at now and roll our eyes. Can you imagine any program in the world kicking off one of the greatest athletes to ever play the sport because he smoked a joint? Florida State did. But by all means, let's concentrate on, a hookup for a shirt and a pair of shoes. It's a renegade program. These things always die down. And in the wake of these things dying down, you always look back and thought, well, how silly was that?
Right.
Why did anybody believe any of that? Why was that article written? Why were any of those things said? There's so many other examples.
The difference between Joe Paterno and Bobby Bowden is Joe's a grandfatherly figure, but he's got more morals with how he runs his football program. Remember that?
You think so?
Goodness.
Well, yeah. Remember, it didn't take very long. I mean, we can do this all day, but I remember several people in the media noting the very different way in which Dabo Swinney governed the situation at Clemson and how this was a wholesome program. And meanwhile, we got Jameis Winston at Florida State. Oh, fast forward. Sean Watson loves a good massage, does he? My goodness gracious. I mean, we could go on and on and on. They are very, very, very influential. Florida State is one of the most influential football programs in the country and maybe of all time, certainly of all time. So when you are that, when you are the focal point of, and one of the most high profile universities that plays the game, anything you do is going to warrant a ton of discussion. It's going to create a lot of talking points, and people feast on that because they got to get clicks, they got to get views, they got to have people who read their articles and go to their website. And I think you correctly note that if you just put Florida State in the headline, there's a good chance somebody's going to click on it. It's an easy one, as opposed to putting, I don't know, any of these other schools that we're naming. There are very few that can rival that eyes on set approach that Florida State has.
Pat Forty writes an article that says Washington Huskies killing football. Like nobody cares. No, they're not. No, they're not, Pat. No, so I'm going to pass along. But it says that Florida State has crossed the line. Yeah, man. People are just, interesting. Florida State's all over the news right now. Did they get screwed? Did they not get screwed? Like, I'm telling you, wearing this hat, as I love to do up here in New York, I've been stopped by no short of 5 people. Guy at the chemist, which is what they call the drugstore up here. A couple of people at the bar saying, what do you do? I mean, do you still watch the game? I'm like, well, I cover it for a living. But it's a talking point in a place in the country that nobody gives a damn about college football. They really largely don't up here. It is still something that made the headlines where they say, you guys got hosed. Yeah, man. And the Florida State brand, if it was Cincinnati that got left out and they were deserving, and I'm wearing a Bearcat shirt, nobody's stopping me.
Well, it should be noted Cincinnati should have been left out, but they weren't because it's always been the most deserving. But yeah, I mean, I go on and on and on about where we're at and how polarizing we are and how we move the needle and how it dictates the discussion around the school. Much of it seems random. Much of it seems certainly less than accurate. It's not complete is a better way of saying that. Like you get a lot of partial, truths in these stories where they'll say, well, this happened and that led to this. And they'll ignore just a massive swath of evidence to suggest the opposite of whatever the central theme of their story is, the through line of their story. Florida State, I heard, for example, I was driving down the road and I think Colin Cowherd does a good job on his show. I don't listen to it much anymore, but I think as a talk show host, he's fine. He loves to give business analogies to everything. But what you realize is nationally, a lot of the folks that have to weigh in on this, even though they're ill prepared to do so, because it's not their cup of tea, it's not what they cover, it's not anything they've researched, they tend to take a cursory surface level of view of whatever the situation is. And he kind of couched what Florida State's doing as a temper tantrum for having been snubbed. Well, now, if you'd paid attention at all to the sport, Florida State was talking about exiting the ACC before this season began. There's no way that you could equate the two. Florida State was already making news because they had discussed openly in a board of trustees meeting before the season began that they were in a dire set of circumstances that would need to be addressed sooner rather than later. So, that doesn't take one very long to just click FSU, ACC, see what comes up. You'll find stories that date back 15, 18 months about Florida State's dissatisfaction. It doesn't take a lot of work, but it's just easier to say, oh, Florida State's mad, and they're ruining the sport because they're mad.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I typically embrace this part of aggressive language and aggressive feelings to get out of the ACC, vitriol towards the ACC, more than you have over the years. Like, for example, I remember last year I said, I look forward to Wake Forest death as a football program. You're like, oh. But I think a lot of people now are like, yeah, I agree. I've come around on this because they're one of the people that are holding us up and they overvalue who they are. Like when we came out last week, what the hell was that statement by the athletic director saying that, well, we've got 600,000 people that love our program and we're proud to be Wake Forest Athletics. Okay, man. Thanks for that. But I'm glad to hear that at this point in the history of, yes, it's like a dystopian time for college athletics, but I'm glad to hear you're on board with like, screw these guys.
Listen,
you can screw these guys.
It's silly. It's all so silly. It's like, I like to think I'm a serious person now who loves absurdity and can have fun. But I think that generally speaking, those who know me know that if we're discussing real issues, really complex issues, that I take those kinds of conversations and those discussions seriously, like a serious human being, as opposed to like a lot of our politicians. And so, like, if you're serious about fixing something or learning about something, you understand that it's incredibly nuanced and it's going to take a ton of work.
Yep.
Most of what you see in terms of opinions being, either posited on a talk show or written about on a website seem to stem from people who aren't taking things very seriously. Like, I don't think they are looking at these issues as serious issues. Florida State has no choice in defending itself and figuring out its path moving forward, but to take this incredibly serious. And they have been for a very long time. And they really cannot worry about the opinion of others at this point. It's really irrelevant what Pat Forty or Colin Cowherd or anybody else thinks about what FSU is doing. It's completely irrelevant. What Florida State has to do is protect its future, its financial future, its competitive future. And the only way to do that is to leave this conference where you can be on equal footing to those you seek to compete against. And there is no other option. This isn't something that you can just sit idly by and watch happen to you, not as a serious person. So if you're the athletic director, if you're the board of trustees, if you're the president, this is a serious matter. It's not flippant. It's flippant for columnists. It's flippant for talk show hosts. It's a serious matter for Florida State's financial future and the hope of continuing to build towards something great annually. You can't do it if you're losing out on 40, 50, 60 million dollars per school per season. You can't do it.
Correct. And short of some sort of legal judgment that would be extremely favorable to Florida State. And I think they've got more. I mean, you've talked about this. You were doing the show last week. But that the legal points that they're making have more teeth than maybe we thought they would in the beginning. That this is going to bring the ACC to the table for a settlement figure that maybe is decent, in terms of getting out for Florida State. You are still not going to operate dollar for dollar with the SEC programs you compete with or the Big Ten programs that you compete with for a period of time, because you're going to have to pay off whatever this lump sum is. Like, when it all comes down to it and they're done shouting at each other and releasing statements that are passive aggressive, it's what's the damn number to get us out of the conference? And let's say it's $250 million or $300 million, something along those lines. Well, break that out over 10 years or 20 years. You're still not going to be operating dollar for dollar with Florida or with Georgia, but instead of being 30 million down or 40 million down, you're going to be 10, you're going to be 12, something along those lines. And how quickly can you get there is the question for 2024. And how quickly does the ACC actually want to meet to set that number? It probably all starts with where the venue of the case is going to be. And that starts the domino effect of how you can negotiate.
I think certainly initially that's the sense. We can talk about that as well. I've got a really good feel right now just from lawyers that I've used as sources, several of whom I'm very impressed by and gotten to know over the last month. Yeah, venue may be an argument. It certainly seems what we all kind of took away from the initial filings when we saw that the ACC preemptively filed, which certainly doesn't seem to be in good faith.
Nope.
And is very punitive. And then you saw what Florida State did in filing in Tallahassee and alleging the violation of Florida state law. That's fine. I think for that reason, it'll end up in federal court. It won't end up in North Carolina or Florida. And there is there's a reason for that, which is boring for me to get into right now, maybe on a different podcast. But I think this will be handled federally. I also don't think this will ever see a court ruling on this. I do believe, to your earlier point, that this will bring about some sort of settlement. It seems to me that it would be in the ACC's best interest, because if it were to go the distance and by any chance whatsoever, Florida State were to pretty much win the case, say goodbye to the conference, because now a number is set and it's just been given to Virginia, North Carolina, Clemson, Miami, NC State. To me, what they'll do if they do settle, it will be in private, and that number will not be revealed. It will not be talked of. It will just be the end of our relationship with the ACC. And by law, it will not be disclosed.
That's correct. And then I hope it's leaked so everybody pays the fee and leaves as well.
Well, that's the second part, is that it probably will be, because nothing ever is kept under wraps completely. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Power Mill Training Academy equips motivated athletes focused on baseball and softball with the specific tools to reach their true potential. Now, you'll read that if you go to their website, but I'm here to tell you that, look, whether it's your daughter wanting to play softball, your son wants to play baseball, or maybe they just want to have fun and get the most out of their abilities, and that's where Power Mill comes into play. They've got coaches and camps that teach for every level of play for your son or your daughter. To learn more, go to PowerMillSports.com.
The perfect gift under the tree this year is a new spa or hot tub from Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas. There's nothing like resting your jolly old soul in the spa after a long, stressful day. And it's the gift that keeps on giving all year long. Heat up your holiday with the end-of-year sale going on now at Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas. During the month of December, go to our new website, TallahasseeHotSpring.com, and fill out the contact form to receive an instant $1,000 off coupon towards the purchase of a Hot Springs hot tub. Get in touch now before this deal ends. Also, take advantage of up to $6,200 off select High Life models and get a free accessory with the purchase of your new Hot Spring Spa with affordable financing for qualified buyers. Come see Cameron. Visit TallahasseeHotSpring.com or check us out on Facebook or Instagram. That's TallahasseeHotSpring.com. Coupon cannot be combined with any other offer. Come see us for the end-of-year sale. Happy holidays.
I'm Greg Tisch, and I'm here to tell you about TCC's first semester. In the fall of 1966, about 300 students were expected to enroll at the brand new Tallahassee Junior College. A total of 698 enrolled, exceeding everyone's expectations. The campus was not finished, though, so classes took place in Rickards High School and then Godby High School. Today, TCC has 7 campuses and enrolls around 15,000 students annually.
TCC thanks our community for 58 years of support. We look forward to moving into the future together.
Hi, this is Justin Colvin, founder of the Medicare Help Desk. I routinely speak to seniors who are overwhelmed by the multitude of coverage options available to them. That's why I created the Medicare Help Desk radio show. Tune in every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. where I provide clear answers to all your questions about Medicare.
Before you buy that new iPhone or iPad, be sure to talk to the experts at Mac & More Systems to make sure all your older products will play nice with your new gear. Mac & More Systems has the best deals, advice, and the best support for all of your Mac products. Give them a call today, 894-3622.
This is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
CordellCordell.com. Lisa Cargis, Florida resident partner. Scott Trout, licensed in Missouri, Illinois, and Georgia only. 904-323-0000. 1 Independent Drive, Suite 2200, Jacksonville, Florida, 32202.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness. 2 Tallahassee locations, Midtown on Thomasville Road and Northside in the Village Common Shopping Center. Online at orangetheoryfitness.com.
It's pretty funny how our minds are in sync and have been for many years. We don't always agree on everything, but we agree on a lot of things. But we also seem to look at things very similarly. When you said, and then I hope it's leaked so that everybody can have the number and then leave, it's the very first thing I thought of when I was talking to one of the lawyer guys I just referenced. And I said, you know, non-disclosures are, I know, a legal avenue in which parties can come to an agreement. and it is understood that there are real repercussions for if it's ever proven that after you've agreed to a non-disclosure, if you are ever proven to have been the source of a leak, you've undone all the good that could have been had in that agreement. You are screwed. You'll be taken to court, and the deal is null and void, and all these problems. They make it very, very difficult. They make it so that it's truly a non-disclosure. There are people who settle lawsuits against companies they worked for, and both sides come to the table, and the number comes up, and the person is free to go on their way, and they'll get asked a million which ways to Sunday by their new company or friends or family. And if they're ever part of truly a non-disclosure agreement, they will say, I cannot tell you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to risk all that I fought for at this point, right? And yet, it's the first thing I thought of. I was like, there got to be ways. I mean, these numbers do get because I too am filled with the same sort of disdain and frustration and hate and vitriol towards the ACC at this point. It's gotten to be, it's an ugly divorce at this point. It's an ugly divorce.
Yeah, this goes all the way back to when Stan Wilcox said it's good for everybody in the conference that everybody gets the same amount of money. And I was like, no, it's not, man.
No, it's not.
No, it should be, if you're going to do it at that point 10, 12 years ago, it should be based on enrollment. So there you go. The price per student is at a certain level because
Wake would be dead in the water. Yes.
There's 50 people. There's 50 people there. You know what I mean? Like, stop it. We got 50,000. Yeah. I'm just interested to see how quickly, because there's going to be saber rattling on both sides, but how quickly do they actually have that meeting? I have a sense that we'll hear about it behind the scenes, that they're at least going to meet. It doesn't mean that they have to come to a settlement and a figure, but that the legal teams are going to sit down and say, do we have a pathway here to settle this earlier? Both of our, like, look, Jimmy, I know that we want these billable hours, but both of our clients are saying, let's see if we can hammer this thing out. Because again, if it's done the right way, which really nothing has been with the ACC, but if it's done the right way, we leave and then maybe the ACC stays intact. But if it's fire and brimstone and we get down to the legal argument of whether or not ESPN's unilateral right to exercise an extension of the agreement in 2027 is real, like if what we're alleging is a truth, and if they didn't have 2/3 majority to extend in terms of signatures on paper to extend the grant of rights, then the whole thing's disbanded instantly, and everybody's going and fishing for their own future. So it's in the ACC's interest, I think, here, if it wants to continue to exist, to work with us at some point in the near future.
Yeah, I will say, and this is, again, I'm not a lawyer, and I'll be very careful when we talk about this subject to only speak on the things that I've sought information on from attorneys, to only really speak about in terms of definitively stating things,
right,
making declarative statements. Yeah, we all have opinions about how we think this might go based on the cursory glance we've taken at the lawsuit. To me, I will say, I would caution Florida State fans regarding how much of what we allege in that lawsuit is 100% accurate and how much it can be disputed. I would tell you that if it were as simple as they did not have the signatures and they blindly just decided to extend in 2016, as we're alleging took place, this would have been resolved long before now. I mean, they spent over a year searching for an avenue by which to levy this lawsuit. If it were that simple, it would have been discovered within hours. I mean, it wouldn't have been that easy.
Correct. Yeah, the curious thing, and I agree with you, this is why I said even before the 2027 extension, like if that's true, I want to believe Florida State on this one, but we also have to be cynical. Across the board, you got to be cynical. Like, really? So ESPN could just say no mas to the ACC, and that's like somewhere it's a provision in the agreement?
Right.
All right. Fascinating. The one thing I can't reconcile, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, for any contract in any business, or even if you contract somebody to do something for your home and you're renovating it, you're making a repair or whatever. How is it that you sign an agreement with the ACC and in turn they sign an agreement with ESPN and you are of the ACC and you can't have a physical copy of the agreement in your own campus, on your own campus? Like, how's that possible? That you have to go in, they got to like turn, it's like the missile keys. You go 1, 2, 3, two guys turn it at the same time. You get in the elevator, you go in the vault, you go down, and then they show you the document.
Right.
And it's like, it's vacuum sealed, and you could take notes on it, and then you got to, like, what in the world? I've never heard of such an agreement in any realm of business where you agree to something as a party, you signed a piece of paper, and you don't get a copy of it.
It seems awfully strange, and it's all part and parcel to this whole thing that intrigues everybody involved. You know, look, the fact that Florida State is the first to ever really challenge the grant of rights in this manner is exceptional. I think they're taking a huge risk, but it's one they had to take. And the effort is obviously to hope, in my opinion, is to truly get the ACC to come to the table here. But they are running a huge risk, because if in fact it is ironclad, as so many people have referenced, then you could lose this case and you are going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars, and you are going to come out with egg on your face, and you are going to be screwed for the foreseeable future. You know what you're up against, and I don't think they willy-nilly filed the suit without really contemplating and being very serious people regarding this matter, right? So there's got to be something of legal merit that they felt beyond just rhetoric that they could challenge. It's easy to have a board of trustees meeting in which you are given the side of the plaintiff. You are saying what it is you're upset about. Everybody's, yeah, I agree, and we're going to challenge it. And you bring in your lawyer, and Ashburn talks about it, and we all go on and on. But there's going to be a counter. There's going to be, oh, please allow me to retort. There's going to be the other side here. And we're not going to know of a lot of this behind closed doors unless it really does go to trial, which would be truly interesting. I just don't think it will. But if it does, that will be fascinating. We're going to learn a lot at that point.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's less likely than Florida State getting out of this for an agreed upon number is that it goes to trial. It goes to distance, like to where you can see, you can read, you can consume everything. I just don't believe the ACC has every detail of their organization buttoned up, and ESPN has a stomach to allow those types of communications to be made public. Nobody has a stomach for any of that. So I think that's the only thing that's less likely than us getting out of the conference for a number. But you can also say in this moment, and I've seen this on our boards at Warchant and on social media, you can also say that we did have a hand in this. We cost ourselves a lot of money, 10, 11 years ago when we signed this thing the first time, but more so when we signed the extension for nothing. When we signed the extension to 2036 for basically nothing, the promise of a network to actually get made, that's the reason we signed the extension to the grant of rights. Jesus, guys, that's horrible. And that's where you say that's on us. So the settlement figure we pay is because of the decision that Thrasher or somebody else made in that legal office and said, yeah, we should move forward with this.
So a long time ago, and this is, we get into how things are nuanced. If you go back to when the original grant of rights that we signed away, and you and I had cause to discuss this.
Yeah.
I think anybody can look back and see the understanding and the reasons for having done it the first time. It's everything that happens subsequently that makes no sense.
The Baron one,
right?
It's arguable. The Thrasher one is inarguable. Yes,
that is correct. But the first one is arguable because you were bent over a barrel. You had zero leverage, and in order to have the network built, you had to have basically the marquee programs in the league be on the same page for ESPN to move forward. Now, again, we were already behind at that point. You could argue that before it ever reached that place, that the writing was on the wall and that Florida State needed to be more aggressive and proactive about its future. But the fact was they didn't have a lot of leverage, and they decided in that moment to do it. It's forgivable. It's the next incarnation. It's the next time that you see this extension that makes zero sense. And who signs a deal?
That was only one syllable. You didn't, yeah.
Well, who signs a deal for something to 2036. I mean, what? That's why you heard me say. That's why the F bomb nearly slipped there. I mean, who does that? And nobody would do that.
Buddy, I don't know. So like on the first one, the original one, I remember we were on the FM dial. We had just moved to the FM dial. And what really pissed me off about that was at the time, it wasn't necessarily the grant of rights as we know it now.
Yeah, you were mad because Sun Sports was paying Florida like $1 gazillion for
third tier. Yeah, third tier rights as they were known. And they had just released Florida because the SEC network demanded, if they're going to create the network, that you have that. And it was $10 million a year. $10 million a year, which at the time was a lion's share of money.
Which made a lot of sense, yeah.
You could have gotten Sun for maybe 7, 6 or 7, and not given up your third tier rights. And still, what is the ACC going to do? Kick you out just because you won't give them their third tier rights? The network wasn't going to get created anyway, and I don't think we expected the network to be ready at any point at that time in history. So that's where I get frustrated with the first one. The second one's just absolutely asinine. And as you find out more and more about it, that promises and assurances weren't necessarily made to Florida State about this, that, and the other. You just signed it over. Like, my God. I mean, it would be like extending your car lease for another 2 years, and they're going to up you and double the rate. And you're like, all right, sure. I really love this car.
In fact, I'll keep it for the next 15 years. So, I mean, yeah, sure.
It's just, it's very frustrating.
I do want to talk about something that is frustrating for all fans, and that's the bowl games. I'll do it next. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Excellence defines us, so we'll never let orthopedic pain and injury define you. TOC is a physician-led team of fellowship-trained specialists providing the highest level of orthopedic care in the region. With 12 centers of excellence and TOC Now urgent care clinics, our patients access affordable expert care fast. TOC, only experts. Schedule an appointment at teamtoc.com.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The bungalow chung, Jeff?
Is that what is the pork?
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of, that nobody would know, and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now, back to Jeff on Real Talk 93.3.
So I come at this, it's appropriate on a Redemption Thursday, from a gambling standpoint. A lot of people do not, but it still illustrates the problem, and in a big way. So this is one of those times where using gambling, whether it's for a spread or an indicator of a team's power ranking or an indicator of, any number of things. We talk about how you don't have to be a gambler to utilize the same resources that gamblers use to get a better understanding of what a team is, what a conference strength is, what a power rating is, the way you're perceived by Vegas, what a game would be on a neutral site, all those things. Well, there's something inherent to all of that, and that is that everybody is above board. Everybody is taking these things seriously, and everybody understands that there's a lot of money on the line. And that money, by the way, has been infused in the sport via advertising. Now you see ESPN runs their own gambling app, for Christ's sakes. I mean, this is how far we've come. You can bet on the ESPN Bet app. I don't. I use the Hard Rock app, and I use a bookie locally. But everybody's got their things that they like to use, okay? That's fine. That's all well and good. The point is that these networks and beyond that, you could say the conferences are taking gambling money. If you allow DraftKings to advertise, then you are taking the money. So you can't have it both ways. If you're going to take the money, everything's got to be on the up and up. And that includes injury reports. And my God, what we've seen in this bowl season, these bowl games, beyond just saying the obvious, are often meaningless to many of the combatants. And also the sense of what is important in these games has changed dramatically. Like there was a time where tuning into these bowl games, you knew what it meant for Tulane to play in this bowl, even a lesser tier bowl. You knew what it meant if Southern Miss made a bowl and they were playing a big boy and they had a chance to win a game that might catapult their program somewhere. So all of a sudden you tuned into the Liberty Bowl and you thought, this game kind of feels important. There's something at stake here. A year ago, when Florida State won in Orlando and beat Oklahoma as they were still climbing, it felt very important to win that game. And people tuned in and watched it as if it mattered, that there was an element of importance to that contest. Not just Florida State fans, I'm talking about college football fans, because we're fans of the broader sport. So when we sit down and we watch a bowl game between Kansas and UCLA or something like that, you say, oh, well, okay, one coach is fighting to keep his job. Another is one of the most well thought of climbing coaches in the industry. A win here over another Power 5 program. This guy next year could have the pick of the litter for the job that he wants if they continue to prove that they can play at the greatest stage. This bowl season, more than any that I can remember recently, has really indicated the shambles that the sport is in. None of these games matter. And moreover, watch the lines in these games. When you have 10, 12, 15, 18 players opt out of a game and it's changing by the hour, how can you take anything seriously regarding what you're about to watch? You can't. It's impossible. Every time I sit down, that's why I talked earlier in the show about in-game betting, Tom. That's the only way to do these things right now, because I don't know, and nobody does, and we're seeing it time and again, how accurate what I'm hearing coming out of these camps and the buildup to these bowl games, how accurate are these statements? How accurate are these player evaluations? How accurate are these indicators that a player is going to play or not play? You have some camps like Georgia trying to keep it under wraps how many players are opting out of the game, how many players are going to play, how many players are a game time decision. Well, that doesn't do anybody any good. You have other programs that are very, very transparent. Florida State's been very transparent. It's the second they've learned of a player that's either hitting the portal or opting out to go to the NFL or for whatever reason isn't going to play, it's announced. It's illustrated on the depth chart. But I look around the country right now at these other bowl games, and Tom, it's impossible to get a real sense of who's playing, who's not playing. And all of it adds up to immense frustration for fans who once valued these games. You have an entire bowl season that feels like none of it matters until we get to the playoff.
Yeah, agreed. And to me, I think when this thing expands to 12, I think it will bring back more meaning to the bowl season, because there is, especially this year, this is a tough year for college football in a lot of ways that are obvious.
It's transitioning, yeah.
But this is also a year where it was gettable. A lot of teams could have won the national title this year, and I believe even with a backup, Florida State could have won the national championship this year. If this was a year in which there were two teams that were head and shoulders above the rest, as has been the case an awful lot the last 10 to 15 years, I think bowl games automatically become more meaningful because, we were never going to win it anyway. There's a lot of teams that feel like they were this close, and either because they lost the game or because they didn't lose a game and the committee decided to screw them, it's a little...
Only one team that fits that bill.
That is correct. There's less meaning to it. But when you get to 12 and you don't make the 12 field, I think suddenly the bowl games actually swing around, because if you can't make a field at 12, all right, then we need to grow, and let's watch us grow in the Liberty Bowl.
I hope that's correct. I will have to wait and see. It has been damaging to the sport. I do think this bowl season has been an unmitigated disaster, and people sense that and feel very frustrated by it. It's all the more reason that their ire, for whatever reason, is directed at Florida State as if they're the causation for all of this. Hour number 2 forthcoming. Stay with Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Friends, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
Hello, I'm Dana Brooks.
And I'm Jimmy Basic of Basic Brooks Law Offices.
Graphic cameras are everywhere these days.
And Basic Brooks has partnered with RoadProof to get access to all their vast network of cameras.
This is a valuable tool to help us search for evidence that could help you if you were involved in an accident.
If you've been hurt in an accident, call Basic Brooks and we'll find out if the proof you need is out there.
Call Basic Brooks and we'll do everything we can to help you come back stronger.
Call us now at 850-777-7777.
Man, I just got a text from my wife. She wants me to cook dinner and then snuggle on the couch next to a roaring fire.
So what's the problem, Dave? You already got the new grill and you're a great cook.
I got one major problem. We don't have a fireplace.
Man, that's an easy fix. Just call Hearth and Patio. They got a lot of fireplaces that can help you for your romantic evenings. Wood, gas, electric, and a ton of different sizes, man. Call Hearth and Patio today, 850-727-4282, or visit them online at hearthpatiotallahassee.com. Hearth and Patio. Ignite that spark in your life.
Hi, everybody. It's Ed Dean, Florida's #1 statewide radio talk show, now in Tallahassee afternoon drive from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on Real Talk 93.3 FM. Yes, highly entertaining, fast-paced, never boring. We always give you the story behind the story when you catch the Ed Dean radio show. And we are ready to go. Tallahassee daily, 5 to 6 p.m. It's the Ed Dean radio show on Real Talk 93.3 FM, WVFT.
T-Spark Enterprises, roofing and construction services. T-Spark Construction.com. We conquer all peaks. We fix those darn leaks. Call 850-766-1340. T-Spark Enterprises, roofing and construction services. T-Spark Construction.com.
License number CCC 1331204.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take-home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat-screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Coming up next, more of the Jeff Cameron Show. Live and local on Real Talk 93.3 WVFT, Gretna, Tallahassee.
Did you know cooking nuisance alarms are the top reason for disabling smoke alarms? Introducing First Alert Precision Detection Alarms. Updated to the newest industry standards, these alarms feature new precision detection smoke alarm technology to help better distinguish cooking smoke and steam from a fire emergency. First Alert Precision Detection Alarms also provide early warning in the event a fire breaks out. Materials in today's homes burn hotter and faster, allowing less time to escape, which means every second counts. Current smoke alarms will continue to provide protection until they reach their end of life. But alarms don't last forever and need to be replaced at least every 10 years. If it is time to replace your alarms or if you want to upgrade to the latest technology, visit firstalert.com or your local Lowe's store to help protect what matters most. Sponsored by First Alert.
Barry knows cool. He's keeping you comfortable. Barry knows cool. You can put him to the test.
Your heating and air conditioning system doesn't check with you before it takes a break. That's why we're always ready to help. Any day, anytime, anywhere. And with our annual service agreement, there are no overtime charges. Ever. At Verno Heating and Air, we will always be there for you.
Barry knows heating and air conditioning.
License CEC 1816-186.
I'm Stephanie, and I work for Paul's Termite and Pest Control. I've been working here for over 11 years, and to say making the switch to Paul's has been life-changing is an understatement. First, we provide a service that truly helps people protect the health of their families and pets from disease-carrying bugs and rodents. Plus, they're homes from destructive termites. So when I go to work every day, what I do really makes a difference. Second, I have grown professionally in the company. I was hired by Paul's in customer service, and now I'm the customer service leader. While my responsibilities have grown, so have my pay and benefits. It's such a blessing to work with friends doing something that helps people, plus being well paid. If you're in a job that provides minimal pay and satisfaction, we have openings right now. Paul's employees receive many benefits like CHP, 401k, paid vacations, and holidays. We work Monday through Friday and provide extensive training so no experience is required. Call today to learn how we can improve your life.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time for the Jeff Cameron Show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hour number 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Good to be with you. If you couldn't tell, today's show is recorded earlier. It is on the actual day. It is on a Thursday. It is actually about an hour and a half before it would normally be on. But we had to do that today. Holiday schedules are weird. It's the way it works. Anyhow, fresh material for the day. And it will be evergreen because we're talking an awful lot about situation that's played out over the last few days while we were all off for the holidays and where Florida State finds itself. I didn't get a chance to mention this last hour, Tom, when we were talking about kind of being the focus of a lot of people's ire and kind of being the representation in the eyes of many of all that's wrong with college athletics, unfairly, I might add, unfairly. But it manifests from people's frustrations regarding where college football's at, the transitional stage that college football finds itself in, and the aggravation that the average fan feels with all of it, having a hard time understanding who's coming, who's going, what is binding, what isn't, what's real anymore in the world of college football. I mean, we've just watched the Pac-12 dissolve. You know, in essence, you just watched a major conference cease to exist, and it happened in a year in which it was the first time the Pac-12 really, truly mattered in a very long time. They actually had a good conference this year, and it's the year that they're dissolved. And then you hear of, obviously, Florida State's lawsuit. You watch players coming and going. You see the bowl games don't seem to have any point to them at this point. 20 kids, 10 kids, 15 kids opting out, whatever it might be in any particular matchup that you're watching. I get all of that. But something that I meant to bring up was that when you are at the forefront of major change, or you're the impetus for major change, and to be sure Florida State is embarking on down that road, you're talking about the acceleration of a radical shift in the sport. And I say that because if you look back at what happened with the Pac-12 and then later the Big 12, let's go back even further. Let's say the Big 12 and then the Pac-12. Let's go back to Greg Sankey raiding the Big 12 and taking the only two entities that mattered in that conference, and then subsequently the Big 10 and or Fox reacting by grabbing USC and UCLA. All right, however you want to look at it. The point would be that the dominoes began to fall when that happened, right? So this isn't new. Whatever's happening is in reaction to that. But in every one of those sets of circumstances, the schools that were in those conferences, so I'm talking about Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12, I'm talking about Southern Cal and UCLA, later Washington and Oregon to a lesser extent once the conference was clearly dissolving and they didn't have a TV partner. Those schools were all within a handful of years of their contract being up anyhow, right? Meaning the grant of rights, meaning the television contracts, they were all on the cusp of being renewed and renegotiated and all of that. So the window for that kind of move was open. Florida State's doing something that none of those schools were attempting to do. Florida State is burning it to the ground. Florida State is challenging the grant of rights 12 years before it's up. 12 years before they would have a chance to opt out, to leave, to renegotiate, to go somewhere. 12 years. And they're the only school to ever do it, to ever challenge it. So when you are spearheading this kind of a movement, this kind of a change, which will lead to even more radical changes in the sport, you are going to really, there'll be blowback. You're going to be on the other end of serious blowback when you're the one trying to do something that's never been done. Now, history is filled with people doing things that had never been done, and many moons later, they're lauded oftentimes for bringing about the change that was necessary within the law, within whatever it might be, right? Historically, you want to be on the right side of history. So it's not surprising the backlash at Florida State. It just happens to be married with a time in which Florida State was absolutely screwed. And I would bet that 70 to 80% of the people who love and watch college football agree that Florida State got screwed. So it's weird because you have this empathy from these fans who look at Florida State and say, well, that was just wrong what happened. That doesn't seem fair. Are we going to stop pretending that the games matter? Is that where we're headed in college football? I'm on Florida State's side with this. And then within weeks, they're going, Florida State's doing what? They're setting fire to the conference. They're ensuring the demise of yet another Power Five. They're guaranteeing that everything will change for the good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it, in college football 12 years before it has to. So this is like you're in the crosshairs of everything. You have the empathy, you have the anger, and everything in between.
I applaud this current group of Noles that are on the board, or whether they're in the administration, Ruby Diamond, well, I should say Westcott, Ruby Diamond is the theater, but they're over there that have said, look, if we don't do anything, we're dead anyway. So you might as well try this. It's better than doing nothing, because I think a lot of teams, there's a whole lot, even though you're seeing movement in Power Five, there's a whole lot of, well, let's see what happens. Let's not make any rash judgments. Let's not move on anything. In NCAA sports in general, the NCAA itself does that. Let's watch this thing deteriorate.
Well, they lose in the courts every time they try. Yeah, so.
But I mean, I'm not even talking about rulings on programs that are doing things that are illegal. I'm just talking about trying to reform and fix the sport. Like the current guy who's in there is trying to clean up the mess that Emmert made, and the mess is still compiling. Like there's no chance. There's just a whole lot of energy in NCAA sports, big time college football that, well, let's see how it works. I'm not going to do anything to stop it. That looks like it's a big mess over there. Let's just watch it pile up. Look at the latest ruling that came down from the NCAA that says that multi-time transfers are basically fair game right now. You can go leave right now. If you've already come to Florida State and you're a transfer, you can leave again. Like Darrell Jackson could go out in the open market after this game that is played on Saturday and go find a home. Again, the NCAA just released that. So collectives and coaching staffs and all these in every sport are saying, oh my God, there's an existential crisis where even though I thought I can count on this small percentage of my roster that is built by transfers, they could just go leave again, like the kids that come in from high school. Anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying there are a ton of issues and a ton of power players, be it programs or the NCAA itself or conferences, that are saying, let's just sit back and see what happens. Whereas Florida State is not saying, let's just sit back and see what happens. Let's take our future into our hands and be active about it. And I applaud them for that, because they're doing the opposite of what so many institutions are doing right now.
They had no choice. They laid it bare the first time that they talked about this publicly. We already knew it. We had been talking about it for some time. We could read the tea leaves. We were looking at when the television rights deals were up for the Big Ten and for the SEC. We knew the kind of money that those contracts would garner and thus pay out to the individual institutions in those leagues. We knew, just based on projections alone, that would put Florida State behind the eight ball to the tune of initially $20 million per school per year, and then later $40 million up to $50 to $60 million per school per year. It was simple math at that point to suggest that Florida State inside of 5 years would be irrelevant on the national stage. Florida State, when deciding to build that facade, went all in, I'm talking about the stadium, went all in on being relevant nationally in big-time college football many years ago. There was no looking back. There was no turning back. It had to happen. Florida State had to move forward once it made that decision. This institution is not, from an athletic standpoint, Wake Forest. They could not have a track around their field and sit idly by and talk about the great nature of amateur athletics. Florida State needed to matter on the largest stage in the world of college football, where the power brokers eat from the money trough to an outrageous sum annually. And if they didn't, they would cease to matter. And Florida State understood that. They understood that from the get-go. And so when the writing was on the wall, those whispers began. They had no choice, and I do applaud them. I do think it's an awfully tough task to take on, to be the first, to do something nobody's tried to do, because you are at tremendous risk, and it could really cost you long-term. I mean, this could end catastrophically for Florida State. Now, it could also end in a way that we look back on and realize with great pride, our institution did what it had to do in the face of overwhelming odds and intimidation and won its freedom, if you will. And I know I'm talking about football, not people, but here's the deal. It comes with angst. It comes with uncertainty. It comes with weekly, monthly being in limbo. And that is hard. I can see this right now within the fan base. It is hard to accept. People don't know what to do. I read my inbox, and it is, it's hilarious. On the one hand, people are like, yeah, let's do it. Screw them. F them. We're going to do this, and this. It's going to be awesome. And on the other hand, I get, within 5 minutes of that email, somebody saying, be careful what you wish for, man. We could be destitute out in the cold with no conference to play in inside of a year. You get all of these things. And it's all true. It's all true. These are all possibilities. These are all resolutions that could absolutely be accurate. Florida State could fall on its face, could fail miserably, could lose in a court of law, and be absolutely persona non grata and broke.
Yeah, you've said that there's nothing worse than being in limbo. I would say in most cases that's correct. This is not one of those cases.
Right. No, this is action. Well, they're taking action here. This is fine. You're not in limbo when you take action.
Right. Well, and also limbo's better than death, because that's where this program would be in terms of what it defines as success. This could turn into Wake Forest if we just sat and did nothing for 12 years. We could be like Wake, where we rise up every once in a while and maybe make a New Year's Six bowl. I guess now we make the college football playoff as a conference champion, but there's no real chance for us to win a national title. And that softball program, remember Lonnie Alameda? Yeah, she's doing such a great job for A&M now. But once upon a time, I didn't know if you guys know this, but she was at Florida State. And Florida State, next to Oklahoma, cheating Patty Gasso, they were the best program in the country. They really were. Next to that Oklahoma program, they were one of the cornerstones of the sport. But now, it's great if they make the tournament, maybe escape a regional once in a while. Same thing. Oh, remember Mike Martin, that baseball program? Oh, my God. I mean, Omaha was their second home. It's kind of cool to see them come out of a regional. I know they're going to get smoked this week by Arkansas in the Fayetteville Super Regional, but you know what? A really good story for 3 seed in the regional Florida State. To me, that's where we're going if we do nothing. That's the world we're going to live in if we do nothing. I choose the limbo that we are now in versus the fate of doing nothing. And I fear, honestly, if it was the previous administrations here, athletically or at the president's office, we might not have done anything. We might have just saber-rattled a little bit and not taken it this far.
I think that's probably a fair assessment. Florida State had to modernize their athletic program. They had to modernize their booster situation. They had to modernize a lot of things that they were doing as a program to get to a place where they would be strong enough to endeavor to do this. So I think, yeah, there are a lot of indicators that you're very excited about Florida State betting on themselves. Florida State is betting on themselves here in a big way. How could you not? The numbers tell you that Florida State matters amongst the great college football programs across the country more than almost everybody. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. Florida State, from a ratings standpoint, eyes on sets, being an asset to whatever group takes them on to move forward with future television contract negotiations. Florida State moves the needle more than almost any other program in America. The exception certainly is Alabama, which we now know certainly rates higher than Florida State. There are a couple that do, but not many.
No.
So you're betting on yourself.
And the other thing I'd say about that is when you're looking at average ratings per game this year in Florida State is in the top 10. I think there's 7 or 8. Why don't you give us a Big Ten or an SEC schedule to round out our 12?
Correct.
Instead of having to play at Wake Forest, instead of having to play, even though Duke did decent numbers for us, what if that was Ole Miss instead of Duke that was on a Saturday night? You don't think that game would have rated a little bit better in Tallahassee? Of course it would have. That's I was just going to say it's self-fulfilling for Florida State. It's self-fulfilling. You go to play one of those Big 2 conferences, and that's your schedule. We're higher than 6th or 7th in most viewed programs in the country. We're top 3, top 4 easily at that point.
Well, and I would also, I just in terms of where Florida State's at and betting on themselves, I would just say this. I don't, I hear a lot. I'd caution people about this. I hear it all the time, and I hear it even amongst our own fan base. People will say, well, you've poisoned the well. I mean, the relationship between Florida State and ESPN, thus the SEC, coupled with the SEC's thoughts about Florida State over the last decade or so, which is that we don't need them. We have Florida. We've got the state. We don't need to bring Florida State in. That's fine. I can appreciate that. It's insulting, but you can handle that reasoning if that's what they think. But I would say that's allowing that too is when you hear people posit that too is allowing emotion to take too much of a lead in the discussion. When that's reserved for people like Paul Feinbaum, who seems to be emotionally attached to the idea that Florida State ought never to enter the SEC, right? He's emotionally attached to that. And he's also carrying water for others. The thing is, when negotiations become about what's best in terms of attaining assets and making you money, emotion is irrelevant. It gets taken out of the conversation. It doesn't matter that currently our opinion of ESPN and the SEC is that they can go pound rocks, that they could go to hell, and that you would never want to enter that conference. The truth of the matter is, if Florida State were offered tomorrow a deal by which the SEC said, you know what, we see the writing on the wall, ESPN calls and says, we get it. We get it. You're fed up and you're not going to take it anymore. We're in a bind because while we don't necessarily need you right now, we don't like to envision a future in which the Big Ten plants a flag in the state of Florida in our backyard and then does so with Clemson and North Carolina and perhaps Miami. And now all of a sudden we're dealing with a national conference from coast to coast with 4 flags in our own backyard. This is problematic. So we're going to be preemptive. Let bygones be bygones. Come on down, guys. We'll pay half your exit fee and you can join the league. Florida State would sign that deal tomorrow. They would do it. And you wouldn't have to like it and you could be mad. But guess what else you'd be doing every Saturday moving forward? Tuning in to ESPN, watching SEC football with your beloved Noles. That's exactly what you would be doing.
Yeah, this is such a hard time, for Florida State to be making this particular decision that, because if you think about the larger issues that are at play all at the same time, you've got a reorganization of the sport that's coming in the next 10 years. It has to. There's no commissioner of college football right now to argue on college football's best interest or on behalf.
And they desperately need one, Tom. They did. This has been evidence for some time now. They need a czar of college football that operates in the best interest of the sport, and they don't have it.
Empowered by the power conferences to go do that, because the NCAA has already said that the power conferences can govern themselves by different rules than the rest of college football.
That is correct.
So you've already got that established, but there's nobody to lead the charge. There's nobody who's imbued with the authority to do anything on college football's behalf. So now the networks are running the show. So instead of there being a commissioner that is directing where the sport is going, it is the 2 networks. And to your point, it's an ESPN's best into a professional light football where you've got 2 mega conferences and there's a playoff that's comprised of those 2 mega conferences. You got to have another voice in the room. We don't. So Florida State is taking that risk at this period of time. Then there's this other thing about the economics of television and sports on television. where this is the only thing where when I read, I forget whose reaction piece it was. It might have been The Athletic, that some of the administrators at other schools in the ACC are sitting back solely because they don't know that these amounts that ESPN and Fox have agreed to pay the Big Ten and the SEC are actually going to be real in 5 or 6 years, because there's a bubble potentially coming with sports rights and how much they cost and how, unfeasible, unrealistic these numbers are.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that's happening right now, where it's like Florida State could fight this legal battle. They could win. We could be in the SEC or the Big Ten. But then, this whole media rights thing isn't what it used to be in 2022 or 2023. That would be the only thing that would make me pause, because there's a lot going on simultaneously.
Yeah, but it's all relative, Tom. If those numbers come down, they'll still be higher in the Big Ten and the SEC than they would be the ACC. So,
of course, you would be best positioned. You would be best positioned to win. But if you have to pay a settlement of $300 million and you were expecting to be receiving 60 or 70 a year, but now you're receiving 20 or 30, because there's a reorganization of how much money these payouts are, it just got a lot more expensive. You know what I mean? That's the one issue.
Yeah. I just think you want your brand chief amongst the other elite brands in the sport, and it will garner the most amount of money for you, whether that number is no longer astronomical as projected, but rather lessened because of the realization that this is a bubble on the verge of bursting. You're still going to be in a better position. You're still going to play more meaningful games. It's going to be better for your local economy. You're going to matter nationally more, and you're always going to have a path by which to pay off whatever loan you get from the private equity firm that's going to pay for your exit. You're always going to have that. So if you remain idly sitting back waiting on all this to change the landscape and then make a decision, you're getting left in the dust. And every year that you sit here doing that, like these other schools that are letting Florida State take the media beating that Florida State's taking now, well, that's fine. You called it right in the first hour. They're cowards. Every year you sit back and you fall further behind is a year that's going to add to the list of things you have to achieve first to be able to compete on the field once you finally do make the move, because you're 5 years behind, 6 years behind. To me, they had to do this. Now, I just hope that in doing this, they have an actual case. There seems to be real teeth to this lawsuit. The lawyers I've spoken to say they were surprised by the teeth in this lawsuit. They thought it might be a little less than what we've seen on the surface, than what's been alleged. They kind of were concerned that there wasn't a great case to be had. They looked at this and said, I can't guarantee you they're going to win it, but they're making some valid points here.
Well, every valid point is worth a certain amount of money to a settlement. You know what I mean? So you could say the 2027 unilateral ability for ESPN to extend, if that's real, if that's a thing that's actually true and nobody knew about in the public before, that's worth what? $75 million off the top of a settlement, $100 million off the top of the settlement. My question to you is, since you're talking to these legal minds, because it had the teeth that they didn't expect to see, was there energy from them that says, I wonder why they waited so long? If they knew this already, why didn't they just do it in August?
Well, no, I think they wanted to make sure they had their ducks in a row, that this was a complicated endeavor. This wasn't a frivolous, sort of, hey, I feel wronged. I mean, you're getting into the minutia here. You're getting into the fine detail of contracts, and, all of this has to do with making sure, A, that you have a basis for a lawsuit, and B, that you have really covered your grounds here. You dotted your I's, crossed your T's before you come forward. And that takes a lot. They've had lawyers looking at this for a long time. And that wasn't because they didn't intend to make a move, but they needed to know, could they? And so you really had to scour this. I just like knowing they were thorough. I like knowing that they didn't willy-nilly this has been described by some people as an emotional reaction. That is 100% not true. It is anything but an emotional reaction. This has been a measured and, I think, detailed approach to leaving the conference, to trying to get out of this conference, to breaking the grant of rights. This hasn't been sort of, hey, because I want to go back. I don't believe it's as simple as that contract being extended in 2016. I don't think it's that simple. If it were, everybody would be suing. Everybody would be
Right.
opting out. Everybody would have left by now. I think that was one of many things alleged in this suit, obviously.
Yeah. I think one of the other parts that's compelling here is, not acting in the best faith of the conference. The ACC is not acting in the best faith of its members. When they're trading an extension for ESPN to green light an extension on the agreement for nothing. Like you don't give something away for nothing ever in this realm of business, in this realm of industry. That never happens. So, if you've got a fiduciary obligation to your member institutions to act in their best interest and you aren't,
yes,
and that can be proven, again, that's worth another $50 million off the settlement. Like how does this get cheaper for us? How does this get cheaper? That's the whole thing for me.
That's the meat of the suit. If you can prove that, or you can convince a judge of that, if you can convince people that, hey, they didn't act in the best fiduciary interest of its member institutions, and here's how we're alleging that's true. They didn't even try to renegotiate this in good faith in 2016. They just extended. Right. Well, if that's true, holy moly! I mean, that number 0 they threw out there at the Board of Trustees meeting suddenly makes sense. I mean, if that one thing, if that is found to be true or accurate as an assessment of what the ACC did, then the number 0 is very real at that point.
Well, and the other thing I'd say is, I applaud the board. Everybody over there at Florida State, you're correct. They have buttoned this thing up as much as they possibly could, and they waited, I think, as long as they possibly could, but they knew that there was no choice at this moment. It's a pinch point for the morale of the program, for the health of everything, like the fan base, all of it. Action needed to be taken. The other part of it is, I think some of the players here are legacy hunting. Like they might be Knowles, but this is a legacy thing, man. This gets you a statue. This gets you a name. This gets you whatever you want. If you're the person that gets Florida State into the Big Ten or the SEC, or most importantly, out of the ACC for pennies on the dollar, oh man, you are assured of your legacy in the history of Florida State in a way that most others aren't, outside of, say, Bobby Bowden. Nobody else will have a legacy quite like whoever is going to be the architect of this particular moment. So I think that's the other thing. There's motivations for more than just one reason here, but I'm happy for whatever their motivations are if it gets the job done.
I keep thinking, and I know we got to go to break, I just keep thinking all that's at stake here. It's so much bigger than Florida State deciding to try to get out of this conference. It's changing college football forever. If Florida State is successful in any way, you're changing, you're fast tracking the changes that are inevitable.
Okay, think about this.
You're fast tracking them.
Well, SEC, Big Ten media lawyers, airtight grant of rights for those particular conferences no longer. If this thing gets broken, you don't think those lawyers are going to try to find an FSU ACC decision proof grant of rights moving forward after that? Oh my God, that's the first. They're probably checking it right now.
People are scared to death, and you're gonna feel the backlash of that. Florida State's gonna bear the brunt because they're first to do it. They're gonna bear the brunt of all of this anger. So when you read these stories, understand. Again, this is chess, not checkers. We are talking about bigger forces at play here. Mm-hmm. I sound like a JFK conspiracy theorist, but I'm telling you, there's a lot more at play here than Florida State leaves the ACC. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Excellence defines us, so we'll never let orthopedic pain and injury define you. TOC is a physician-led team of fellowship-trained specialists providing the highest level of orthopedic care in the region. With 12 centers of excellence and TOC Now urgent care clinics, our patients access affordable expert care fast. TOC, only experts. Schedule an appointment at teamtoc.com.
The perfect gift under the tree this year is a new spa or hot tub from Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas. There's nothing like resting your jolly old soul in the spa after a long, stressful day. And it's the gift that keeps on giving all year long. Heat up your holiday with the end-of-year sale going on now at Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas. During the month of December, go to our new website, TallahasseeHotSpring.com, and fill out the contact form to receive an instant $1,000 off coupon towards the purchase of a Hot Springs hot tub. Get in touch now before this deal ends. Also, take advantage of up to $6,200 off select High Life models and get a free accessory with the purchase of your new hot spring spa with affordable financing for qualified buyers. Come see Cameron. Visit TallahasseeHotSpring.com or check us out on Facebook or Instagram. That's TallahasseeHotSpring.com. Coupon cannot be combined with any other offer. Come see us for the end of year sale. Happy holidays.
Tallahassee's 30-year-old funny paper and American Legion Post 13 have joined forces to become Major Morale. The new magazine has 4 more pages of post activities and military information that you probably never knew. But don't worry, it's still as politically correct and newsworthy as always. Okay, it's the same funny stuff, but it's still only available at the sponsors' locations like ABC Flooring, Tallahassee Automobile Museum, Krispy Kreme, or Keith Lawson Services, providing professional services and maintenance for your home's most critical systems for over 39 years. If you need air conditioning, heating, or plumbing repairs, you will receive an upfront written quote, and the job will be done on time by the area's most advanced, highly trained professionals. Keith Lawson Services, Florida license CMC 1250-456 and CFC 1429-197.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we're hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to drink water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us. We're fine.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service, right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mndlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now, back to Jeff on Real Talk 93.
Let's do some solving of the future with our friends at ISF, and this will be a non-traditional ISF read, if you will, or conversation. Obviously, feels like all we're doing is perpetually solving for the future. But I got a great text from Jonathan over at ISF, and we've had a good time collaborating together since he's joined the show and since their company ISF has joined the show. But talked about how in year one of solving the future on this program, it got off to a rocky start. Not the ad, if you will, but rather the team. They were 0-4. As he notes correctly, we hung tough together because the first step to solving the future means facing your presence. Year two of solving the future, we got to 10 wins, but there were some stumbles along the way, and we decided to stay on board and continue to build and climb, if you will, using Mike's vernacular. Then they went 13-0, and here we are now. It's been a commitment to rise together. So it's the first step to locking in the new reality, and the biggest solving the future mic drop ever was staying on board with the Jeff Cameron Show and us staying on board with ISF and watching this thing go from that rocky beginning to this dominant place in which both are thriving, and we appreciate that very much. We appreciate where Florida State's at. I do think, Tom, that we have some meteor issues to deal with on the ground right here, right now with Florida State, and I want to get a sense of where your head's at with this. We've just spent the better part of an hour and 20 minutes talking about on this show what Florida State's doing, the way it makes us feel, the fan base's reaction, the national reaction, the meaningless nature of these other bowl games, the transitional stage that college football finds itself in. But we haven't spent as much time because we also have an opportunity tomorrow on a Libations Friday edition of the Jeff Cameron Show, as well as the pregame show that you and I are going to do before the Orange Bowl on Saturday. So there is time to tackle all of this. But while we're solving the future, I think we should take a good hard look at this. This has not been a good 10 days for Florida State. This has been a really tough time. I get the sense that Mike Norvell is frustrated. He looks tired to me. I see a man that is kind of looking over his shoulder around every turn. Now, what does that mean? What am I insinuating? Well, you don't know which players are on their way out the door. You don't know who you're going to have, and you got to play Georgia in a significant bowl game, and that it's the Orange Bowl. And a lot of people are going to be watching said game. And you feel like the momentum of your program that you had when the clock struck 0 against Louisville and Charlotte, crowning you as ACC champions heading into the final days of recruiting, heading into the transfer portal season. You felt like you were flying high. And then the fateful news came down that you were excluded from the playoff. And since that time, nothing good has happened to Florida State. It seems like if you want to defer to the recruiting class and say it was a good recruiting class, but not a great recruiting class like it was anticipated, even that feels like you were somewhat slighted or frustrated by the results. So Mike's got, I think, a difficult task in front of him now. He talks about gathering, galvanizing, continuing to climb. It's hard to do when every day there's another announcement that a player is leaving. I mean, Keon Coleman was a foregone conclusion, but nonetheless, that announcement just happened. Tate Rodemaker, you thought was going to start the bowl game. He's not. You got to go to Brock Glenn. And while you may love Brock Glenn and you can tell the world that he's built for it, the truth is this is a hell of an ask with a bunch of backups to have this kid making his second career start against that team. Florida State doesn't feel like right now it has a lot of momentum to me.
No, I think getting some of those young players on the field on Saturday and hopefully they can make a few plays here or there. I think that will help settle things and settle the matter down a little bit. It's not going to be totally satisfying. It's not a perfect elixir to the issue that we have, because I agree with you that there's a lot that's going on for Florida State and most of it is not so good. But I think the hard part is it's going to be, I think, January 3rd to January 7th is the next visit window for transfer portal candidates, for early enrollees, kids that you want to be here in spring. So by the time we get to the 7th or the 8th, we're going to have clarity on who's in and who's out. The problem is, I think, not just for Florida State, but for programs around the country that are like us, that are in the big conversation, there are rocky moments to come. And if you're Texas and that happens, anybody in the Invitational, all right, that's one bit of negative news for a larger positive development. We've had good, recruiting classes, success on the field, but this is just a minor bump on the road, otherwise smooth ride. For us, we're in a plane and there's turbulence going on and the plane is shaking and it's rocking back and forth and the flight attendants are screaming and the oxygen masks are deployed. And it's like, all right, folks, we've got 20 more minutes of this kind of turbulence is what you're hearing.
Hang in there.
Oh my God, we've been going through an hour of it. We've got 20 more minutes and then we're going to set this puppy down. I know there's smoke coming out of the wing. Don't worry about that. That's just one edge and the other three are working. We're fine. This is going to get bumpier next week because of the NCAA ruling that says multi-time transfers are a thing. So I think on the coaching staff side, on the collective side, we're going to have to go through a little bit more grief the first week of 2024. And then by the time we get to about the 8th, 10th of the month, there's going to be a little bit more clarity. But yeah, I think the negative storylines keep rolling with a little bit of a pause if Hakeem Williams goes off on Saturday or Destin Hill or Conrad Hussey or whatever. Blake Nicholson has a couple of good plays. That'll give you a stay, but then there are more bumps to come. And I agree with you that Mike is a little bit shook right now. Who wouldn't be? That tweet on Christmas after Tate Rodemaker made his decision where he's talking about, life is full of adversity and whatever. That's not like Mike. He doesn't tweet that stuff out. All he does is put out animations when we get a commitment, and that's about it. So I think he's searching right now, but who wouldn't be? This is an unprecedented month for any coach.
Part of solving the future for Florida State right now is weathering the storm. And I just continue, that's the through line of today's show. We continue to talk about being at the forefront of change and how difficult change is for all of us. We all know that these are, you have your good days and your bad days when you're going through radical changes. And I just think Florida State is in that place right now. This program they went through another change for the positive with the regular season that they had, the 13-0 campaign, the ACC championship, and then immediately found themselves in limbo, and nobody likes that feeling. I stress it all the time. Being in limbo is really difficult when you don't have great certainty of what's coming next. It's certainly not great certainty as to whether it's going to be successful or not, or sustained or not, this newfound excellence, right? That's tough to stomach. I just think we're going to all feel a lot better when February rolls around, but it's tough to get to February because it's December 28th. And you're sitting there going, man, because look, if this plays out the way I think it's going to play out, Florida State's going to have a tough road when they play that game against Georgia. And when they lose that game against Georgia, if they lose that game against Georgia, and if it's as lopsided as it feels like it might be, given the circumstances, again, this is not the Florida State team that went 13-0. This isn't anywhere close to that team. When you go into this game without Jordan Travis, without Keon Coleman, without Johnny Wilson, without Jaheim Bell, without Tatum. I mean, what did I say? Tatum Bethune. I didn't mean to say Tatum Bethune. Trey Benson. Well, without your offensive lineman, when you go into this game without those weapons, it's hard to envision a scenario in which Florida State emerges victorious. So say they lose this game and it is lopsided. It's just adding to the ledger of helplessness that Florida State fans feel right now. And I'm telling Florida State fans, hey, deep breath, weather this, don't overreact. Well, maybe stay off social media for a month. Hang in there.
That's the thing. When the plane's going nuts, remind yourself of the statistics that they just generally don't hit the ground unless they land. They don't hit the ground face first. So just remind yourself, as hard as it is in this moment where you're shaking for your life, that it all typically ends up okay.
Yeah, stare at a dot on the chair in front of you. Just stare at it.
Even if the world is spinning around it, just make it the center point of the kaleidoscope so that you can see that as the world is spinning.
Stare at that thing and hold, and you'll get there.
But there's no doubt that Florida State right now could use two things. Number one is Cam Ward to say yes. That would be a nice calming thing for everybody. Like, okay, all right.
Got a quarterback. All right, yeah.
The next thing would be, and I get there's a lot of infighting in terms of the way that maybe there guys have exited the program or, whatever. If we could see fit to one weekend in January, just having a bunch of the unconquered 23 Noles show up and be celebrated inside Doak. And you stream that, and you have events around the stadium, maybe some bounce houses for the kids. You make it a big fan fest engagement. Well, I'm just saying, like a big fan fest engagement that celebrates the unconquered 23. I think everybody kind of needs that right now to exhale and say, this was a tremendous season, a special season, because that gets so lost in the rear view. And that sucks because this is an all-time special season that I fear we're not going to appreciate until we get till about like June on the calendar or July on the calendar of 2024.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah. So for now, it's kind of a weird solving the future end to the segment, which is to say that we're solving the future by not overreacting in a negative way, even though a lot of negativity is coming your way. Breathe, hang in there. Florida State's going to be fine. Maybe not initially, but down the line, Florida State's going to be fine. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
At Epps Decorating Center, we're your locally owned Benjamin Moore retailer. We're your store for quality with brilliant and durable paints in a variety of sheens and thousands of colors. We're your store for service with one-on-one advice for contractors and homeowners. We're your local experts, and we're here to help with all your painting projects. Benjamin Moore, available at Epps Decorating Center with 2 locations in Tallahassee. Find a store near you and visit EppsDecorating.com. That's EppsDecorating.com.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The Bonk on Lechong, Jeff.
Is that what is the pork?
The Bonk on Lechong, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of that nobody would know and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now, back to Jeff on Real Talk Night.
Got to begin this segment where I have failed so many others by not mentioning our friends at Zaxby's. I have committed a grave oversight. My apologies, Zaxby's. I got to be honest with you. I've eaten too much Zaxby's this holiday season. It's so easy. They're so delicious. It's easy. You got gatherings, you got people, and you go, I got to deal with Zaxby's. I'm going to go pick up some Zaxby's. They're delicious. And then because you've seen me do this, Tom, I can't stop picking at it. I just keep back over and over and over again. You've got more willpower than me. I don't.
Maybe my lack of willpower is just restrained to a time when nobody's there. You know, that's I've got public willpower. I've got public willpower with the Zaxby's, but then privately, you know, it could be a Sunday after we get a platter for the game on a Saturday. It's Sunday morning, and then my wife goes upstairs to use the restroom or something. I'm like, let me sneak in there and get
sneak over there and grab another piece of Zaxby's.
And then what happens is by about the 4 o'clock window of the game, did you have 4 more Zaxby's?
I did. I'm not going to lie about this. I did.
When? I choose my moments.
Yeah. You weren't looking. That's when. Hey, I will say this. Zaxby's been on board all year long. We love them. We love that they're on board with us, and we continue to really enjoy that relationship, primarily because their food's really good. And they're on 131, if I can get it out. If I can spit it out. 131 locations these days, Tom. Think about how fruitful this football season was. There were days that there were 54 Zaxby's. Now we're up to 131.
Well, heaven forbid that Florida State joins the SEC and has all of those yokels make their way to town every week for different sports. Zaxby's will need to, I mean, this might just be the Zaxby's show. You know, we might get replaced by a couple of chickens talking about Florida State because of how powerful Zaxby's will be in Tallahassee.
Oh, my goodness gracious. All right, buddy. So we thank Zaxby's and, of course, proud Golden Chief boosters there at Zaxby's for over 18 years. We love you, Zaxby's. It's happened in the last minutes of this show. I've got to bring it up because we've talked privately and texted. It's official. I'm a Baker Mayfield fan.
Well,
I'm like legitimately a Baker Mayfield fan.
Okay, now you were, and then you weren't, and you are again. So this is your second time on the wagon. I hope the seat was the butt groove is still the same for you.
Yeah, I think that, okay, so I love Baker at Oklahoma for obvious reasons.
Right.
Won big, won the Heisman, was phenomenal. Then I thought, okay, we're getting out over our skis when we're talking about drafting him number 1, people. That's crazy. He's still too short. He's still going to have a problem getting the ball over the line of scrimmage. I don't think he's a long-term answer as QB1, but I loved what he was in college. All right, so then I was proven kind of right. You know, he was this. He was up and down, and you're kind of like, But there were always people who pushed back on my negative Baker Mayfield discussion. They would say, well, you make it sound like he's the dregs of the league. Jeff, he's not that bad. He's a middling quarterback who, by the way, it should be noted, a lot of players like to play with. Whatever. I don't want him. Then he comes to Tampa, and I'm told right away from the folks down there at One Buck Place, the players loved him. They loved him. He wasn't a prima donna. He knew this was maybe his last best chance. He loved the talent at wide receiver. He knew he'd have an opportunity to kind of reshape his career, and he seized it. He worked harder than anybody they'd seen in a long time. He was there, first in, last to leave type guy. But moreover, he was physically tough. He wasn't afraid to lower his shoulder. He wasn't afraid to get after it in practice with teammates. He wasn't afraid to be the bold guy that he was. I thought, okay, again, rolling my eyes, whatever. earlier this season, you saw kind of an up and down performance from Baker Mayfield. You're kind of like, well, that's who he is. That's his career in a nutshell. He's good one week, bad the next week, good one week, bad the next. Can't really count on him. And then my man just straight up went on a roll for the ages. The Bucs are going to win the division, and I dare say might be a problem for anybody that has to come to Tampa and play him.
Yeah, it's a second thought. Last year there wasn't a second thought, even with Tom Brady. And I think there's a lot of passive-aggressive shots at Tom Brady in 2022, that version, the last year, being taken when there's praise for Baker and what he's done this year. And I'm talking about unnamed sources in the locker room and then offensive players saying, man, it's a pleasure. This guy just comes to work. Because Brady didn't that final year. He was broken. And look, it was very public as to how and why he was broken. But I think this year, you just see a team that embraces that they're not elite. They're above average, barely. But that's what Baker is. He's the embodiment of exactly what the Buccaneers are this year, and it's lovable. And I also want to point out, because I just looked it up, that's what I was typing away for, the Bucs offense has scored more points this year with Baker than they did last year with Tom Brady. How about that? With 2 weeks to go. With 2 weeks to go.
This is the hard part for me to reconcile, and I don't know how long he can sustain it. But the reason that I love him, besides the fact that he's been tough, he's played in every game, he lowers his head and gets that first down. He just did it again last week, Tom, that third down play where he gets the first down on the right. That's who he is, right? But he's starting to make throws. Like throws, Tom. Like throws where we go, whoa, you got that in the bag, do you?
Well, yeah, that third down throw for the long touchdown 2 weeks ago when he had the perfect quarterback rating. That is a pick six unless it's a perfect throw. And it was
He's done it a lot in the last 3 weeks. That touchdown, once again, to Mike Evans, double teamed here, only place you can put it. It's a laser. I'm like, what are we doing? So anyhow, time's up. We'll be back tomorrow. Good talking to you. Good to be back with you. Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For Tom Wang, I'm Jeff. Peace.